What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Learn to Defend Cyber. My name is Joseph. We're going to be working on Tryhackme's Diamond Model Room today. First off, I wanted to greet the people who are here already. I don't know if my chat box isn't working for whatever reason, but we do have Jose Alfredo. What's going on? See some other people starting to trickle in. If that doesn't work, I'll go ahead and get that moved out of the way and everything else, but let's go ahead and pivot on over because I am excited to start this room and I'm excited to talk about the diamond model, so let's do this. Alright, so the diamond model. Diamond model of intrusion analysis is its full name. I left a link in the description that takes you to the white paper that talks all about this. Basically, it breaks down how threat actors behave so that you can use correlation and attribution a little bit better. Now, we've worked on a couple rooms in the past now for the Tryhackme rooms that all talk about threat actor TTPs, right? Tactics, techniques, and procedures. And this is going to follow that same idea, right? I have never gone super duper in depth with the diamond model, so this will be pretty fun. Obviously, I mean, I know a decent bit about it. So let's dive right on in. Diamond model. There's 4 core features, right? You have the adversary, infrastructure, capability, and victim. So these are the 4 core features of any intrusion activity or event that may happen. What is going on, Study GRC? Welcome on in. Excited for the diamond model, yes. Call me what you will. A nerd is one of the names that will fit. So, diamond model carries the essential concepts of intrusion analysis. I don't even think I hit join room yet to spin anything up. And adversary operations while allowing flexibility to expand and encompass new ideas and concepts. The model provides various opportunities to integrate intelligence into real-time network defense, automating correlation across events. So, anytime I've ever heard of the diamond model brought up, or I've used the diamond model, or I've heard it mentioned, it's usually by cyber threat intelligence analysts. I've never really heard of how you could use the diamond model internal. Obviously, if you were actively intruded and somebody was in your environment, you could definitely use these 4 cores to tie in attribution, be like, okay, this activity looks like it was because of this infrastructure, because of this technique, blah, 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 blah. But I've seen it used heavily when tying in CTI, that's cyber threat intelligence, by the way. CTI, they'll go and get information on these different cyber gangs, criminal gangs, ransomware actors, APTs, you name it. They go and collect this information and they're able to use these different artifacts to be like, yes, this is actually them, yes, this is what they're doing, etc., etc. So, classify events with confidence into adversary campaigns, forecast adversary operations. That's a big part of this, right? You want to be able to get ahead of the ball. If we were reactive the entire time, we would just constantly have issues. I was going to use a little bit of a more colorful expression there, but not right now. But we would constantly have issues, and no one would have any fun. Music is a tad bit too loud? Okay, I can turn that down. Thank you for letting me know. What's going on, Fleetus? Welcome. Chris, you're here as Study GRC and yourself. All right, so let's dive into it. Adversary. This is one of our four main tenets, right? You have the adversary, known as the attacker or the enemy, the cyber threat actor or hacker. Anybody who wishes to do you harm in some way, even if it's just poking around in your environment, if it's malicious, that is technically an adversary. Even if somebody is not trying to be adversarial, you may have an insider threat who's just doing stuff to goof around, still technically an adversary. It can be an instruction or a breach. That's what they're talking about, cyber attacks there. According to the creators of the Diamond model, an adversary is an actor or organization responsible for utilizing a capability against a victim to achieve their intent. Adversary knowledge can be mysterious. This is a core feature to be empty for most events, at least at the time of the discovery. Okay, so they're taking adversary into a more literal term, that this is, I guess you can't have an unintentional adversary. You can have an unintentional threat, but I suppose with the diamond model, they're saying that we don't actually have unintentional adversaries, and they're saying that during the discovery of an event or an intrusion, you may not have much information on who the adversary is because you haven't maybe discovered everything you need to know. It is essential to know the distinction between adversary operator and adversary customer because it will help you understand intent, attribution, adaptability, persistence by helping frame the relationship between adversary and victim pair. So an adversary operator is the hacker or whoever is conducting the intrusion activity, and the customer is the entity that stands to benefit from the activity conducted in the intrusion. Okay, so you may see this. There are individuals who are known as initial access brokers, IABs, they may be referred to. These initial access brokers, what all they do is they'll crawl for creds, crawl for low-hanging fruit vulnerabilities, and, you know, run autopones, run scripts, do whatever. And once they gain a foothold in an environment, they may try to seek to go further, but not all of the time. Sometimes they just get a foothold and then they start selling the access on the dark web, right? They sell it to whoever. You have ransomware as a service gangs, where IABs are they call them RAS, ransomware as a service gangs. They work hand in hand because what happens is the IAB will gain the initial foothold, sell access to somebody. That person goes and commissions the ransomware as a service actor, and they are like, hey, I have access to this network. I need a payload. They give them the payload. Obviously, the person who's distributing this malware may seek to gain admin access first, typically. They might just hit the one device. You never know. But what they'll do is they'll commission this ransomware as a service, grab the payload, ransomware the environment. The IAB was paid for getting access. This third party is paid for ransomwaring the environment, and then the ransomware actors who are actively there. Different gangs do different things. You may see some actors go and actually do more themselves. You may see some gangs, all they do is basically broker a transaction and take a cut from the ransomware payment. It depends. It varies from operator to operator. And that's kind of what this relationship right here is, right? You have the adversary operator, who is the hacker. This is your hands on keyboard. And then you have your adversary customer, anybody that benefits from this activity, right? So this initial access broker would be your operator, and then your customer would be whoever buys access afterwards. And in that scenario where somebody buys access, if they further intrude the environment, you may have them as the operator, and then the customer is going to be that ransomware as a service actor. Just want to sell you information and tokens. Absolutely, Fleetus. That's all they do. That's all they do. They just want to sell you. They're like, hey, we know about this vulnerability. We know that this company's weak. We know everything. We have access, blah, 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 blah. They're not there to become king of the castle in any means. You may have hybrids that kind of do it all. They like fully pwn an environment and then sell access. Again, it's going to vary from person to person, group to group. What is a term for a person or group that has intention to perform malicious actions against cyber resources? So that's going to be our adversary operator. If I could spell. All right. What is the term of the person or a group that will receive the benefits? That's the adversary customer. Move on to victim. Victim is the target of the adversary. So anybody. Car. Nice. I had a car over here, not on a stand. Just 1 second. All right. So Victim, target of an adversary. Victim can be an organization, person, target email address, IP address, domain, etc. Victim is a victim. It is essential to understand the difference between a victim persona and victim assets. So persona or personae are the people and organizations being targeted and whose assets are being attacked and exploited. The assets are the attack surface, including systems, networks, email addresses, hosts, IP addresses, social networking accounts, etc., etc. So basically, it sounds like it's pretty literal. The personae are this is your humans, your more organic assets. So it does point out organization names, industries, job roles, etc., etc. Where the assets are the actual technology. You got your systems, your networks, IP addresses, DNS, I'm sure is probably thrown in there. So what term applies to diamond model for organizations or people that are being targeted? That is your victim personae. Capability. Capability is known as the skill, tools, and techniques used by the adversary in the event. So this is our TTPs. Yep, they highlighted it right down here. Tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now, if you remember when we were going through the kill chain and we talked about the pyramid of pain, right? I have a couple extra videos for that. You can go and watch those if you're interested. The TTPs are basically a fingerprint, right? They use Cobalt Strike. They always abuse SMB. They always do X, Y, and Z. It's just patterns and habits that these groups have. Capability can include all techniques used to attack the victim, from the less sophisticated methods such as password guessing to more sophisticated techniques like developing malware. Yeah. The capability capacity is all of the vulnerabilities and exposures that an individual capability can use. The adversary arsenal is a set of capabilities that belong to an adversary. Oh, moment. Pardon me. The combined capacities of an adversary's capabilities make it the adversary arsenal. The adversary must have the required capabilities. The capabilities can be malware, phishing, email development skills, or at least access to capabilities such as acquiring malware or ransomware as a service. So, this one sounds a little more vague. The capability, I guess it's best broken down as the TTPs. But it also is a little more vague in the fact that it says here in the adversary arsenal that it can be the combined capacity of their capabilities. So the ability to make malware. So they actually take the TTP idea and make it a little more vague, which is interesting, because it says, hey, this group is actually, they're capable of making malware. They're capable of making these spear phishing emails. And that's something that isn't really touched on, is capability in the other ones, right? They say that, hey, they do have this malware, they have that, they have et cetera, but the capability of making malware is a new layer of complexity, right? They may make a brand spanking new piece of malware just for your environment. You don't know. Provide the set of tools or capabilities that belong to an adversary, that is our adversary, if I could spell, arsenal. I definitely butchered the spelling of adversary there. Infrastructure. So this is our final piece of the diamond. All right. Infrastructure is known as software or hardware. This is our, okay. It's going to be their C2 networks, their C2 devices, C2 being command and control, by the way. If you don't know what a command and control is, I know we did talk about it a little bit in the kill chain video, but briefly, a C2 network is essentially boiled down to its barest bones, a host and a recipient. An attacker gets a piece of malware on a device, and then from their command and control center, they send commands to it and receive feedback from the infected host. So infrastructure can be IP addresses, domain names, email addresses, malicious USB. So I guess if they really like SanDisk, then that's a part of their infrastructure. Type 1 infrastructure is controlled and owned by the adversary. Type 2 infrastructure is controlled by an intermediary. Okay, sometimes the intermediary may not be may not be aware of what's going on. This is the infrastructure that a victim will see as the adversary. Type 2 infrastructure has the purpose of obfuscating the source and attribution. It includes malware staging servers, malicious domain names, compromised email accounts, and etc., etc. So if somebody's been pwned and they don't know that somebody's basically wearing their email around, that would be a part of that type 2 infrastructure, right? Say I hack Carl, and I take his email, and I start sending malware out of Carl's email. That's type 2. Whereas type 1 would be me sending email from hacker@hacker.org. I control that email. It's mine. Also, we have talked about fast flux networks. That's that malicious DNS. That would be a part of that type 2 infrastructure where servers are compromised all the time. So you may have web servers compromised. I mean, they're literally compromised all the time. And they may be using these servers to push malware to other domains, to other environments, and the person who owns the server has no idea. It's just happening. Service providers are organizations that provide services considered critical for adversary ability. For example, internet service providers, domain registrars, webmail providers, so Gmail and your ISPs, like I guess Comcast, to throw out one that people may know. And then domain registrars, you have like GoDaddy and all that stuff. So those are all your service providers. There's always been a contested idea of, are these service providers responsible for malicious attacks that happen through their tools? A lot of people say yes, a lot of people say no. I don't know if they're... It's hard to go one way or another one with that one. Like, I definitely think they might have the capability to see that malicious activity going on. But for them to be able to have 100% knowledge of what's going on, they would have to be all up in our business. And I don't know. That one doesn't sound like something people actually would want. And then again, there's also, think about non-malicious things that look malicious. Like, say you're doing a test on your own environment and you use low orbit ion cannon and you just blitz your server with it, and your ISP, your internet service provider, just goes and pulls the plug, and you were not actually being attacked. Now you've got another issue, right? So it's kind of a give and take. Which type of infrastructure do malicious domains and compromised email accounts? That's our type 2. I don't know if they wanted infrastructure in there. They did. Okay. What type of infrastructure is most likely owned by an adversary? That's our type 1. Event meta features. Okay. So this sounds pretty interesting. 6 possible meta features can be added to the diamond model. Meta features are not required, but they add valuable information. So this is, I'm assuming meta feature sounds like metadata to me. So we have timestamps, phases, results, direction, methodology, and resources. Timestamps, pretty self-explanatory. When did it happen? All right. Phases. There are phases of an intrusion. We've talked about this with the cyber kill chain, recon, weaponization, delivery, exploitation. If you were to identify that, hey, this adversary is in the weaponization, or let's do a phase that you can actually detect, the delivery phase, right? You're getting a bunch of phishing emails. That may be some information that's useful. All right, because you can be like, okay, they're delivering it with this phishing email. People have seen this phishing email before. We know that it belongs to Flaming Donkey APT, and we're able to attribute this to them. And we know that they're going after manufacturing, and we're manufacturing, so it makes sense. With the results and post conditions of an adversary operation will not always be known. It will be helpful to capture. It is crucial to capture results and post conditions. The events can be labeled as success or failure or unknown. The results can be related to the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, such as confidentiality compromised, integrity compromised, availability compromised. And it can be, we can document all post conditions resulting from an event, such as information gathered in the recon phase, successful password, sensitive data exfiltration. So basically the result metadata is going to be like, hey, yeah, they did pwn this environment. This means they may go for something similar, or blah, 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 blah. Result may be handy in a situation where you have certain groups that go out and maybe they'll pop one or two big companies and then they go dark for 7-8 months. If you see that they actually did successfully compromise these companies, you know that they may not be doing anything for a few months, or at least they're working very, very quietly. Direction helps describe host-based and network-based events and represent the direction of an intrusion attack. Okay. It has 7 potential values for this meta feature: victim to infrastructure, infrastructure to victim, infrastructure to infrastructure, adversary to infrastructure, infrastructure to adversary, bidirectional, or unknown. Okay. I'm gonna try and break this down. They don't really explain it too well. I guess this is... okay. This is all... describe host-based and network-based events. So... victim to infrastructure, I'm assuming they are talking about any actions that happen coming from whoever's compromised to the malicious infrastructure, any action that comes from the infrastructure to the victim, any infrastructure that comes from maybe one piece of their malicious infrastructure to another, any actions they take to their infrastructure, and then any actions the infrastructure happens to them. Then bidirectional, I'm assuming, just happens in 2 ways. And then unknown, obviously, is unknown. I can't really think of how that would be super duper useful, other than seeing... you might get some interesting information about, like, hey, we see that this is staged in this order, and we see that this C2 spins up in this order and contacts these domains. You know, that's that infrastructure to adversary, right? Like, we know it hits this DNS, that domain, in that order every time. That's a part of the TTPs, right? Methodology, general classification of an intrusion, such as phishing, DDoS, breach, port scan, etc. Yeah, it just helps put a name to what's happening. Resources, according to the Diamond model, every intrusion event needs 1 or more external resources to be satisfied to succeed. Example of resources include software, operating systems, virtualization software, Metasploit framework, knowledge, how to use the attack, run the exploit, information, username and password, hardware, servers, workstations, routers, funds, money to purchase domains and facilities, electricity or shelter, access a network path from the source host to the victim, and vice versa. Okay. So that one's pretty self-explanatory, right? It says, according to the Diamond model, every intrusion needs 1 of these. They have to have a computer to hack you. They can't hack you from a stone tablet. I mean, unless they throw it through your window and plug a USB into your server, if you consider that a hack. What meta feature does the axiom every malicious activity contains 2 or more of these phases, which must be successfully exploited or executed in succession to achieve their desired result, belong to? That is that That is that phase axiom. Every malicious activity contains 2 or more phases. Yeah, you can see they described it up here. Every malicious actor contains 2 or more phases. That's where we got that answer from, right there in the phase answer. You can label the results as success, failure, and unknown. That is that result phase. The result metadata, or meta feature, sorry. What meta feature is the phrase applicable? Every intrusion requires 1 or more external resources. That's that last one we just talked about, resources. Socio-political components. I mean, it's pretty, you can see that this section is, it's pretty bare, right? It describes the intent and needs of an adversary, financial gain, acceptance, it's a cred, street cred, hacktivism, espionage on a nation state level, which is more socio-political in my opinion. You obviously have the same things, financial gain, espionage, destruction, right? You have all of these different things that an adversary may do, and there's no real answering anything there. It basically just talks about, the intent of an actor. Technology component. The technology meta feature highlights the relationship between the core features, capability, and infrastructure. Capability and infrastructure describe how the adversary operates and communicates. A scenario is the watering hole attack, where adversaries compromise legitimate websites and then, of course, place malware, malicious links, etc. on that legitimate website. This is just another one of their TTPs, right? It says, hey, they do watering hole attacks. Hey, they do DNS poisoning, etc., right? It's, as they say here, it's a breakdown between capability and infrastructure. And now, we have the practical analysis. Are you ready to construct a diamond model? Please deploy this static site attached to this task and dive into the case study. Look at the site. I don't know why it's called Unified Kill Chain down there. That's interesting, even though it's a diamond model. Let's look at this case study, I suppose. Okay. This is an analysis of the cyber attack on the Ukrainian power grid. So I'm not sure if we need this. A lot of reading. It looks interesting. Oh, Rob Lee, nice. It looks interesting. We'll see if we need this. So go ahead. Case study for this room occurred in 2015 and not in light of recent. Okay, so it's just saying, hey, we're not doing this because of the Russia-Ukraine event that's going on. Once the attackers gained access to the network, they pivoted to the internal databases and file shares. So that would be a part of the methodology, right? Yep. Attackers gained access using the legitimate credentials that were gained as a result of the phishing attack. That is a part of their capability, apparently. Let's go review that, right? I did get that wrong initially. All the vulnerabilities, so it says techniques they use to attack the victim from manual. Okay, so yeah, because they had gained that password and used it, it is a part of their capability. The attacker's steps can be followed using the phases of a what cyber kill chain model. That's Lockheed Martin. As you've seen a couple times now, Lockheed Martin kill chain, cyber kill chain is very much all the time in cyber. It's a great thing to know. The incident response team has determined that a group of notorious underground hackers named APT-2166 are responsible for an attack. That's the adversary. The attack occurred on this timestamp, right? It was pretty simple. Attackers targeted the information technology systems of a corporation. That's the victim, right? Because the IT systems were the victim. They use a recent malware campaign known as One Trick to ransomware the corporation's servers. That is a part of their methodology. No, is it a part of their resources? I wish I could reread them. Because that's in that meta feature. Okay, moving on then. The attackers stole data from the corporation and sold it on a underground hacking forum, right? We had that one earlier in the adversarial phase where we talked about operators and customers. I would say that this is probably a part of their result. Yes, it is. Right, because that's what happened. They gained access and they sold. That's the result. They succeeded. And then we get their flag right there, THM, Diamond Model Attack Chain. Throw it in there, hit submit, go to our conclusion, and we can talk about the Diamond Model as we get our victory badge. I think that is a great framework. I think when used with other things, it can really flesh out some of your intelligence, right? You're getting an idea on a greater basis of like who these people are, what their goals are, what they may do next based on a trend, what attacks they were part of. I do think it's a great model. I think it is a great model, and to answer the question, I think I don't know if it's the best model. I can't say there's a definitive best model. I think every model of threat intelligence analysis has its perks. It has its perks. It has its drawbacks. I don't know if it was just the room. I want to go back. I don't know if it was just the room, but it felt like a couple of these things were a little vague, or redundant at least, such as direction felt vague, and then the resources question, I think that was just the question that felt vague, so if you got that one wrong too, I wouldn't blame you. Overall though, a good room, and definitely something you should study further if you're interested in cyber threat intelligence. Diamond Model I know is heavily used. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close out. Thank you so much for joining. I hope to see you next time, next Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for #Team Replay, thank you for joining in. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see y'all later.